Hi, everyone, and welcome. So this is the residential design panel that you're all here for ASID New Jersey Student and Emerging Professionals Week. We had a fantastic kickoff program last night, which was very, very exciting. And now here we are to learn about the ins and outs and design philosophies that a couple of our ASID designers who work primarily in the residential field will share with us tonight. I am actually want to remind you all of a couple of things. So one is that we absolutely need to have a phenomenal question and answer session after our presenters give their wonderful presentations. So please make sure that any questions that you have, that you put them in the chat box as we are going through the program, and I will help our moderator monitor the chat box tonight so that we answer your questions. But then also we encourage, after the presentations from both Terry and Marilyn, we encourage live Q&A. So this is your opportunity, right? You don't get this opportunity all the time to say, ask what you want to know about design. You don't get that opportunity, but you have it tonight. You have two practicing professional designers here that you get to glean their knowledge. So I want to first turn it over to our president, Virginia Liberato, to say a few words and also welcome you here today.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you everyone for joining us. We want to just start out by thanking our sponsors, our chapter sponsors, our Design NJ, Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, and Ferguson. And then we also have great opportunities for our student and emerging professional sponsors, Du Chateau Floor, CSS Lighting, Michelangelo Designs. Hopefully while you were in the waiting room, you got a glimpse of their beautiful ads as they were scrolling through as you were waiting. And I just want to quickly thank everyone that put this together. Last night was so invigorating. I'm so excited for this whole week. And also our amazing board, all our volunteers, everyone that volunteered their time to share their journey and their knowledge with our students. So thanks to everyone. And I won't take up more of your time because we have an exciting presentation to get to. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Virginia. So I'm going to introduce our moderator, Paul Cerubo. Creativity surfaced at an early age in Paul Cerubo. Crayons were often found in his childhood bed, which baffled his parents until they realized Paul was using them to color in the circus bear wallpaper that covered the walls. After journeying on many paths during college, Paul worked himself up in the retail industry, and after fine-tuning his professional skills, found himself within the architecture and design industry. Paul's passion for interior design brought him to the iconic ABC Carpet and Home in New York City, where he spent a majority of his time in the Ralph Lauren and Theodore Alexander galleries, all the while building relationship with designers and end users alike. While using the sales floor as a stage, Paul had the wonderful opportunity to work with many celebrity clients and collaborate with influential designers. Paul spent almost 12 years at ABC until he desired a change, landing him in the exterior world of Janus at Sea at the residential territory rep for New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Starting a new territory, one seed at a time, Paul has grown his network far and wide. He is the recipient of the Janus at Sea Social Media Award, and 2021 was record-breaking for him. With over $2.5 million in closed projects, Paul is ranked #1 in residential sales and #6 company-wide. Paul lives in New Jersey with his husband of 23 years, and when not installing a project or performing a client presentation, he loves to entertain in his recently designed backyard living room, complete, of course, with fabulous Janus at Sea furniture. Paul is very excited for his journey with ASID New Jersey and wants everyone to remember to smile big. Now give us that big smile, Paul, and take it away.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see so many amazing smiling faces from our emerging professionals and, of course, our students. So I am excited to be here on your journey, and I'm excited to be networking. And please feel free to DM me anytime on Instagram, and especially if you need a valuable resource for all your exterior projects. So today I'm going to introduce Terry. So Terry Fiore is the principal designer and owner of Fiore Design, which is a boutique interior design firm that creates beautiful environments that inspire wellness. She transforms homes into uplifting places where everyone, regardless of what stage in life, functions at their highest level. Fiore Interior Design flawlessly integrates creative finesse with solid business sense to fashion sophisticated yet relaxing spaces. They're rooted in research. Design principles balance well-being and functionality, resulting in a meaningful and authentic representation of her clientele. A certified aging in place specialist and green AP, Terry's specialty is designing wellness-based interiors. Recent past president of the New Jersey chapter of the American Society of Interior Design, she is also a 5-time Design Excellence Award winner. Fiore Interior Design opened its doors in 2001 and has been recognized in many publications, including the New York Times, Mansion, Global, Design New Jersey, Aspire, Bergen, Health and Life, and New Jersey Home. Please help me welcome Terry Fiore.
Thank you, Paul. That was a very nice introduction. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and then I'm going to shoot over to my my motion censored lights so they don't go off in the middle of my presentation. So let's share my screen. There we go. Second. Okay, let me just scoot over. All right, I'm good for 30 minutes. Okay, so thank you so much to Jeffrey for having me here tonight. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Paul, Marilyn. I'm really happy to be on this panel tonight. And welcome, students. I'm really excited to share my story of how I chose the path of becoming a residential interior designer. I'll be sharing a little bit about myself and much more about my company, especially my processes. And I'm going to show you how a typical project is managed. And although every project is different, the process to the final result is really the same. So just a little bit about myself. I grew up in a home where the art of the craft was highly valued. My mom crocheted, she embroidered, she knitted, she baked. I mean, everything was from scratch. Whatever she made became an art form. She held the highest standard for her work. And as a matter of fact, I didn't own a store-bought sweater until I was about 13 years old. The art of the craft and the pride in creating something tangible from simple materials was instilled in me at a very early age, and it truly influences all of my designs. So the takeaway here is really take from your roots and use it to stand out in your work. So my path, it wasn't such a straight one. After high school, I attended Pace University in Westchester, New York, and I graduated with a degree in literature and communications, and I had minors in art and marketing. I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I chose that major because I loved literature, plus it was a major with the most amount of electives, so I could actually study a little bit of everything that I loved. So after graduation, I landed a job in product development until about 8 years later when I was expecting my first child. So at the time, I approached my boss to see before work from home was actually a thing, if I could do that, and he was like, no way. So they wanted me in the office. So I left to think about what my next steps would be. And I knew that I wanted a career that would offer more flexibility, yet one that was creative at the same time. So a few months later, I enrolled part-time at Berkeley College. And about 4 years later, I had graduated. I hesitantly show you this, this slide because this is my final project at Berkeley. And I'm showing it because before I even graduated, a neighbor had asked if I would be interested in auctioning off my services to raise money for a local women's club. And I took the offer, and before I even graduated, I had my first client. So I actually used this final project to show what I was capable of designing. And the lesson, I think, is to never say no to an opportunity, especially when you're first starting out. So from there, it became all word of mouth. I would work while the kids were napping or sleeping, then eventually when they were in school. And my business slowly grew as I took what I could manage while raising my 2, now I have 3 kids. I'm showing this picture because my son was 1 when I started school. My daughter hadn't even been born at this point. And I was actually, I handed in one of my final drafting projects before I gave birth to my daughter. So by 2008, my smaller jobs had prepared me for the larger jobs, such as this one. I was lucky enough to be able to collaborate with a contractor from the ground up in this project, and I really learned so much on this project. But today, what I really want to talk about is the focus and organization that's needed to balance the many moving parts of design. So this is where you need to think of yourself as a business owner first and a designer second. And that's not an easy thing to do when all we really want to do is design. So it's really easy to stray into many different directions. So you have to think about, what do you do every day that is a repeatable process? Document it, repeat it, refine it, and review it often. For example, we've created a 44-step process to designing a custom window treatment. It took years to get to this stage. And my advice is to just start out small. Record what you do every day, go back after a few months and note what it is that that can be made into a repeatable process. You can be the best, most talented designer around, but if you can't follow through on the steps to implement your design, your business won't thrive. So I'm going to share my steps with you that I use in every single design process. And we even have a name for it. We call it the FID process. It's very simple. So step 1, a client will call, fill out our online form from our website. We have a phone conversation with them. Always ask, how did you hear about us? Did you see our website? What in our portfolio resonated? And if a connection is made, we set up a 2-hour consultation in their home. You get to meet the client gets to see how you work. And this is a meeting, it's a taste for how you and your client will work together. So after that meeting, I'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes explaining our 10-step process. And then I'll even show them before and after pictures. They're really impactful. This is obviously a before and then the after. So these slides, they allow me to share the story behind the design, why and how each room was designed. I also have the budget conversation at this point. I'll talk about what type of an investment is needed to achieve a particular result. I always share at least 2 projects, a high and then a medium. So after that consultation, we'll set up another in-person meeting to present the scope of work and the agreement. I've taken everything from that 2-hour consult as well as questionnaire in order to come up with an in-depth scope. So I'm listening to my clients' needs, reviewing their challenges, and explaining how we'll solve them. This is a continuous conversation with every client. The more you know about your clients, the better you can design. So ask them a ton of questions, but more importantly, listen to them. The most successful projects are the ones that are truly collaborative from the start. And then we start every scope, every project off with an inspiration piece. And it's great when I'm working with a client who already has a collection or inspiration to start that project off. whatever it might be, your design is meant to enhance and elevate those objects. You need to make an emotional connection to a project to stand out. I'm presenting a design fee at this time as well, and then hopefully they're signing on the agreement. And don't worry, if you don't have inspiration from the client, I'm using this inspiration that I saw on the subway for a project that I'm actually working on right now. It's a beautiful mosaic. So we're back in the office working on design development, research, and design documentation. This is the next step. At the start of every project, I do a ton of sketching to figure out the proper scale and proportions, as well as come up with a color story. It starts out messy like this, but it helps to even procure estimates. Here's just a few other sketches. We even take the elevations from SketchUp. We take a blank SketchUp elevation, put tissue over it, and I'm able to scale and get the proportions correct. Clients love seeing these sketches. Like, they don't have to be professional sketches at all. So the visionary review, that's 3 weeks later. And this is really important. This is where our design concept and mood boards are presented. We're showing a loosely knit vision for how the project will flow from one room to the next. I may also be showing like an amazing chaise that I found or a piece of artwork. This is really an important step to ensure that you and your client are on the same page. You don't want to get too far ahead in the process and then show up and you may be off course for whatever reason. Then we move on to trade. It's trade day. So about 3 weeks later, this is the one day where we meet at the project site with all the trades involved to review the schematics or any questions or issues that might alter our design. This allows us to determine, number one, if we can accomplish the design exactly as we had envisioned it, and two, to ensure that our concept fits with the project budget, or does it need to be tweaked? This one day is important because your time and your client's time is so valuable. So keep it to the one day if you can. Back at the office, again, a mess of fabrics, going through, searching for fabrics, schematic, working with the schematics. We're also researching our product, learning everything that there is to know about the products that we're presenting, where and how it's made, learning the story behind each of the makers. So the more knowledgeable you are, the better your presentation will go. We're also sourcing pieces and referring back to pictures of pieces that we saw in person, maybe at High Point Market or at the D&D. It's that time to reach out also to your ASID industry partners, because they will be a huge help to you in any project. And of course, we're working on the details of the millwork as well. So at the end of the day, my advice to you is to learn to be decisive. Not making a decision is probably the worst decision you can make. Okay, so 8 weeks later, we get to the presentation. So you're telling your client how this will impact and how this design will impact their lives, and how you designed it so that it's personal to them. You're then explaining the reason why you chose each piece that you did. And this is where your education about scale, proportion, use of color, and all of the research that you poured into this comes into play. You've educated yourself, and now it's time for you to educate the client. Sometimes we do show 3D models if the client needs to see that. They don't always have to. And then as well as elevations. So client says yes to everything, right? They love everything. Now you move on to the procurement stage. So with so many moving parts, it's important to be as organized as possible. My team and I share a living document, a Google Doc, that outlines every product and every trade that we're using for the project. So when we start placing orders, we know exactly where we are. And this is reviewed weekly, every Monday morning, 9:15, no exceptions. We're communicating with vendors and trades, especially these days because of we're constantly updating and confirming and revising timelines. At least twice a month, we're communicating with our client and letting them know what's happening. Approach it from the client's perspective and ask the question, answer the question, where is my product, before the client has to ask you. We use Design Manager. It's a design specific software, and we use it to create proposals, purchase orders, and to prepare quotes. So all the while, now you're placing the orders are trickling in, everything is received in one warehouse. Until everything is received, it's kept there for the final reveal for a one turnkey installation. So this is a recent project, the one that I actually used as an example for the presentation and the budget review. This is the end product. I wanted to share this project with you as well. I won a Design Excellence Award for this about 2 years ago. And if you remembered, I showed you the inspiration that began with the client's collection from their travels, and the handcrafted Japanese dolls and their multicolored robes were actually the inspiration for this entire room. Here are a few more pictures from that project. Okay, last comment about procedures and our software. We also use our software for, at the end of every project, to analyze the numbers. We review what went right, what went wrong, how much time do we invest in, in putting this project together. We review, okay, and then just remember, what gets measured gets improved, which leads me to the very last reminder. Definitely track your time, always in the beginning, especially. Learn how long your processes take, because when you start designing, you'll be amazed, if you don't already realize through your schoolwork, how much time goes into every design. Okay, so you've heard it 100 times, so I'm going to say it 101. Designers wear so many hats, so never stop learning. Whether it's reading up on what's happening in our industries through magazines, or attending the Kitchen and Bath Show. There was a recent show in Orlando, or the National Association of Home Builders. Look up these shows and see if you can get to them. It's a real education about different finishes, fixtures, what's new out there. Attending High Point Market. We attend High Point Market at least once a year. It's a huge source of inspiration, and we get to see what's coming out in the future, what the future lines are showing. We also get to see, which is a really good idea. I heard it actually from Celery Kimball. She had said that she also goes into the showrooms that aren't as I guess as high end as you'd want to show your clientele, so you can have a conversation about those finishes as well. And this is just a few more inspiration shots from High Point. And even local antique shops, we spend a lot of time in local antique shops just discovering those one-of-a-kind pieces. And then the local shows, BDNY show at the Javits Center, or the New York Now show at the Javits Center, or even just visit the D&D in New York. It's right over the bridge, or the A&D building. It's a huge source of inspiration. Okay, lastly, I wanted to share with you a few of my favorite business books. I probably read or listen to at least one business book a month, and these are a few that I highly recommend. And when I'm driving, these are some of my favorite business podcasts. And then, of course, never stop networking. ASID has opened up so many doors for me, and it has offered so many educational opportunities. I recently heard a quote from a podcast that I absolutely love, where the owner said, sell people what they're asking for, but deliver what they need. That's the gateway to what will transform their lives. So just know that there has never been a better time to be a part of this design community. And this pandemic has proven to all of us how important our homes are to us. And these are just a few pictures from my portfolio I wanted to share. These bar stools are locally made. We try to integrate as much local vendors, many local vendors as we can. These local vendors, the brass bar, it's from a company in New Jersey. The custom hood in the kitchen is locally made as well. This is one other of our projects. So I'd like to end this by mentioning that to this day, my team and I work out of my home office. I did rent an outdoor space, an outside space office for a year just to experience it. But when the pandemic hit, my lease was near its end, so I moved back home. And it's a choice that I've made and one that I prefer. I'm able to be near my family whenever I'm needed. And one of the benefits of working for yourself, particularly as an owner of a design firm, is that you do get to make that choice. My clients prefer that I come to their homes to present their work to them. So they just care about the finished result and the smooth road getting there. And then my last, always, and remember throughout the process, always, always be like a duck, calm and collected on top and paddling like crazy under me. And please reach out to me if you have any questions about anything today. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you, or if you want to email me, whichever it is, I'd love to have a conversation with anyone interested. And I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Terry. I'm jumping in just to say before Paul introduces Marilyn, we are getting amazing questions in the chat box. So audience, keep that coming. And as soon as we start the Q&A, we will actually, because we're getting so many questions from the chat box, we will start fielding those first. And I'm looking forward to having both designers talk about these great topics that you're all bringing up in the chat box. So thank you, Terry. Paul, I turn it back over to you to introduce Marilyn.
Thank you, Terry, for the inspiring details of your journey. I'm sure that will help many, many students on their way. So we're going to move to Marilyn. Hi, Marilyn. Oh, there she is on my screen. How are you today? Marilyn Laverne is the principal designer of Marilyn Laverne Interiors, LLC, based in Montclair, New Jersey. She designs interior spaces, both residential and commercial, for clients in northern New Jersey and the New York City greater area. Her design aesthetic is chic and contemporary, with attention to her clients' narrative about their values and aspirations. With each project, Marilyn is led by the following principles: to create and deliver a space that is original, to incorporate the newest technology and integral materials, to elevate her clients' everyday experience with inspiration, comfort, and pleasure, and to always respect the budget. Interior design is a second profession for Marilyn, who enjoyed a successful and expansive career in public relations, in product marketing for leading lifestyle brands, entertainment entities, and the arts. Her interest in interior design was inspired by her public relations work within the flooring coverings industry and at the Kips Bay Show House in the late 80s. Later, she would work extensively with architects and designers to coordinate the launch of the facade improvement initiatives in the Newark downtown business district. She enjoyed the design process and its impact on the live and live experience in both residences and urban centers. She brought design enthusiasm to her next role as the Assistant Director of the Montclair Economic Development Corporation, as they were rebuilding their downtown to stimulate business growth and broaden investment in urban residential properties. At that time, Marilyn decided to deepen her skills and expertise, so she pursued her formal training of interior design program at the Parsons School of Design in New York City. There, her interest shifted sharply toward residential interior design. Upon completing her studies at Parsons, Marilyn opened Sepia Home, a home furnishings showroom and fine art gallery in the heart of Montclair Shopping District, where she collaborated to revitalize. She developed a successful design practice, creating interiors for residential clients and designing a prominent space in the Montclair Junior League show house. Clients grew steadily attracted to her kitchen and bathroom designs, especially as these renovations added considerable value to their homes. Soon, she joined Cabinets to Go, one of the nation's largest cabinetry retailers, where she designed hundreds of kitchens for clients throughout the East Coast. At times, she coordinated elements of the company's presence on HGTV and DIY networks. Marilyn recently reopened her design studio, designing interiors for clients interested in pairing subtle luxury and comfortable living. She also added fine art advisory to the services she offers to her clients. She is an allied member of ASID New Jersey and serves on its diversity task force. Marilyn resides in Montclair, New Jersey with her husband, Lance, and they have 4 grown children. Please help me welcome Marilyn.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I've got too many thank yous to go through, but I certainly want to start with saying thank you to Tammy Bolden for inviting me to participate in this panel discussion. It is certainly, she is a long friend, but someone whose design career and aesthetic I have long admired. I also want to say thank you, Paul, to you for that gracious introduction, and to ASID for your relentless support of students and professionals in this industry. Also, I want to say thank you to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, even though we haven't met in person, I can see already how much passion you have behind what you've done and what you're doing for students. And I just look forward to working with you this coming year. Most of all, I want to say thank you to the students, because it is not lost on me that it is a privilege to embark on your time in this way. And so I hope that what I have to share, it adds more to what Terry already said. I want you to know, Terry, I took notes on a lot of the points that you made. Thank you so much. But with that, I will share my screen. There we are. Okay, so yes, I'm Marilyn Laverne. My company is Marilyn Laverne Interiors LLC, and I am based in Montclair, New Jersey. The overarching message that I want to share with everyone this evening is that when you come to design in the way that I did, and this is a second career for me, be aware that nothing is wasted. And my message in part is to those people who are emerging designers and are embarking on this as a second career. 3 points I want to make about that is that design draws upon the wisdom that you've already earned from all of your past experiences. So don't be afraid to use that. Lean into the intuition that you have, because that's probably going to lead and distinguish you as a designer. And third, leave nothing behind. Nothing of your experiences or the things you've been exposed to is wasted. Just continue on with those things and make them a part of your work. With that, let me share with you some shots of recent projects that I've been doing. My design aesthetic, a lot of times, whether I'm at a backyard barbecue or a cocktail party, people say, well, so you're a designer. What's your style, or what's your aesthetic? Quite frankly, my style or aesthetic is my client's aspirations. I certainly have, some areas that I like more, but really I'm led by my clients. But in general, I would describe my work as being concise and modern. And like I said, I have an emphasis or place my emphasis on my clients' aspirations. Oops, sorry about that. This here is a project that I did this past summer for a woman who wanted a home office. A close friend of hers had passed away and left her this furniture, which she really felt was like the worst of the estate. But we took these pieces and brought them together and created for her a home workspace that she truly loves at this point. And so in this particular project, I will say that, you know, we turned a room that was really, it was sort of a disaster and really made it something that she spends most of her time in right now. I also believe strongly that interior design is about the future. So I'm always coming to a project asking, will this space and what we're designing, will this serve my client in the next 5 years? Will it serve them in the next 20 years? Certainly there's a lot of trends that are coming into and out of what we're seeing in design. Some of that is driven by technology, some of that is driven by the pace of our communication. But I always want to leave clients with a project that serves them beyond the here and now, and really serves them and their family for the future. My journey, where did it begin? I am originally from Buffalo, New York. I attended and graduated from Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. There I earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in Mass Media Arts and Journalism. Immediately, I was recruited. My first job was at Dow Jones and Company. I worked in the marketing area in a new area at the time. Technology was so new at that time that it would take you 15 to 25 minutes to be able to make a trade. If you wanted to trade on your own. They had a service called Dow Jones News Retrieval, which has grown and evolved into a whole lot of other things. But at that time, I worked there in the marketing area, both in Princeton, New Jersey, and in New York City. And from there, from that first job, I embarked on a broader career in public relations and brand product marketing. And I pretty much had myself ensconced in New York City. I worked with two of the largest firms. These are international firms, Burson Marsteller and Hill & Knowlton. I also worked for the Terry Williams agency. And even though her agency is smaller, it is very big in stature in the sense that a lot of the work that I did was in entertainment. So a lot of work for Paramount Pictures, for the Arsenio Hall show, those of you that might be old enough to remember the Arsenio Hall show. We did a lot of work for musicians like Prince and Miles Davis. And in this work is in the sort of cycle of that work is where I first really encountered interior design and what its impact is on the lived experience of people. These here are showing just a few pictures of clients that I work for. Haagen-Dazs ice cream. You see the Arsenio Hall show there, Courvoisier. This picture right here is a picture of a room done by Mark Hampton. He also was one of the clients that we worked with. And this started my interest in interior design. But where things really got going was my work for DuPont carpet fibers. At that time, they were launching a new technology called Stainmaster technology. This was a fiber technology that could release stains from carpet. And my job was to identify how this carpet was being used by designers and by architects. And it meant that I had to write a lot of articles. I had to interview a lot of designers. I had to be on site for photo shoots showing some of these spaces. Many of them, as you can imagine, were public spaces, but certainly we got into residential spaces. So it would be places like an airport lounge or a fine dining restaurant. You have to shoot these public spaces at night, and at that time, before technology was what it is today, we could start a shoot at 7 p.m. and not be done until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. But from there, I knew that I really loved doing this work. Also, I worked at the Kips Bay show house. For 2 years, our company handled the publicity for the Kips Bay Decorator Show House, and that gave me daily exposure to the design process. I continued writing for shelter publications, and even from there, I just kept admiring interior design and wanting to be a part of it. I leaned deeper into design a little later on. I worked as a public relations consultant for the Newark Museum. I collaborated on a variety of gallery design exhibitions and special events for the museum. And even though at the time I was not a professional designer, I found myself working with designers and artists, fine artists, to create spaces that would be compelling to the public coming to visit the museum. Any of you all who are interested in the decorative arts, I strongly urge you to visit the Ballantine House, which is a part of the Newark Museum. It is probably one of the finest decorative art collections that you can find here in the United States. And to know that it's right here in our backyard in New Jersey is really something remarkable to see. It can show you a lot about the origins of how things are designed that we use even today. These are some pictures of the Ballantine House. In the interior, a lot of events are hosted here, and a lot of my work working with the museum was to create and display the spaces that, in a way that would showcase the very broad and deep collection of antiques and fine art that the Ballantine family collected. Shortly after, I worked for the Newark Downtown District, as was mentioned, and helped to do a lot of outdoor design of spaces to bring more people into the downtown. Working in the Newark Downtown District, eventually the Economic Development Corporation of Montclair invited me to come work here in Montclair to help to build the same kind of thing. And at that point, I decided that it was a good time for me to go back to school. And so I chose to study formally at Parsons School of Design in New York. I embarked on a 2-year program there and learned the fundamentals of drawing, drafting, rendering, and CAD. And this gave me the tools to be able to speak design language. And that's really very important when you're working with clients and when you're seeking to articulate exactly how something will translate visually and how someone will live in a space, or how that space will be utilized even by a business. I'd expected at the time to come back to designing public spaces and readaptive use of public spaces, but very quickly I gravitated towards residential interiors and began almost immediately building my career there. This here is probably one of the high points of my my first endeavor as a business owner. I opened a home furnishings showroom and art gallery in Montclair. If you know Montclair and the shopping district, my showroom was on Church Street, which really does put you right in the middle of things. I did have an opportunity to develop and present a signature style. It certainly attracted clients, real clients, and eventually my studio work began to overtake the sales from our showroom. I was invited by the Junior League of Montclair and Newark to do a room in the show house. And here shows a picture of the room that I did. It was called the Divas Study. This was intended to be a home workspace for, a woman of a certain means. I worked a lot with a local art advisor. Her name is Kathy Imlay. And if you visit my website you'll be able to see a lot of the artwork that we used for this project. Really beautiful collection of art. And I certainly would want you all to take a look and see this. From there, when the economy turned down, and I will say this to everyone who goes into design, expect that there is volatility in your business, and to some extent that is contingent on what's happening in the economy. And that certainly was the case for me. I had towards the 2007, 2008, had a lot of people who were coming to me for kitchens and bathrooms, because those things help to maintain and build the value of residential property. And I had 19 different showrooms that I sourced for cabinetry, and one of them was Cabinets to Go. And I'd said to them, at some point I wouldn't mind joining the team here. And I said that to who turned out to be Tom Sullivan. He is the founder of Cabinets to Go, but even more famously before that, at that time, he is the founder of Lumber Liquidators. And I came on, certainly I designed a lot of kitchens there, but I also managed the showroom and trained a number of other kitchen designers as well. But I would say in my tenure there, and I worked with them for about 7 years, I easily designed hundreds of kitchens. It may have even gone into the thousands. The company has grown a lot, and in large part through its connections to HGTV and DOA networks. And there are a lot of shows that I worked on with the producers to identify what we would want to present and what they would want to present. These pictures right here are from the 2015 HGTV Dream Home. I worked on the Dream Home, helping to put together both the kitchen and the bathroom. These are just some shots from that project. Back now to what I'm doing currently, back now to Marilyn, Laverne Interiors. I do a lot of investor rehab projects. This is probably in part because of my work so much with kitchens and bathrooms. I get a lot of people coming to me, investors saying, we're getting ready to flip a property or put this back on the market. We need your help. Usually, I think one thing leads to another. People hear about me through word of mouth, and then I get more projects. This shows a project that was done this past summer. It's in Hempstead, New York. This showing the living room, part of the dining room, one of the 4 bedrooms on the property, and the bathroom. This here shows the kitchen that we did for the project. Those cabinets are from Cabinets to Go. And then also this year, and this has been a real highlight of my current endeavor as a business owner, I collaborate on a regular basis with another firm based in Brooklyn, New York, Austin Gray Design Group. This is a very innovative approach to building a design business. The 2 partners in that company have reached out to a variety of different designers, tradespeople, makers, artists, and artisans to create a collective of African-American women designers who work on a variety of projects. And we were invited in 2021 to participate in the Kaleidoscope Show House, which is, it's a long explanation, but there were designers of color from throughout the country who were brought together to redesign a 17th century bed and breakfast in Lenox, Massachusetts. And our team designed the largest suite in the inn. And here are a few pictures from the finished space that we did. There's more to say about this project, but I certainly don't want it to go unrecognized. That these are this here is a shot of the other 2 designers that I work with on that project, Denise Gordon and Tanya Lewis. Back Back to more of the projects that I do is Marilyn Laverne Interiors. This is a condo renovation that we just finished up. I got these pictures day before yesterday. We just finished up this project earlier this month. This here shows the bathroom in that kitchen renovation. And this here shows the kitchen in that renovation. This is, like I said earlier, the kind of work that I'm starting to get more and more, a lot of kitchens, a lot of bathrooms. And now on to just 5 pieces of practical advice that I want to share with designers, whether you are an emerging designer or a student. Practice number 1, I would say to be intentional about your work, about creating your own design identity and defining and constantly redefining your design perspective. Bring all of your experiences to this practice the way that I talked about earlier. It's important to be aware and to understand that nothing that you have done before is wasted. All of it contributes to the designer that you are today. Also, and this was a piece of advice that I'd heard from somebody earlier this week, know your zone of genius. I appreciated what Terry said when we were speaking privately earlier. She comes from a product development and marketing background. And I think the question was asked, does she do a lot of her own marketing? And she said, absolutely not at this point. That I think she's identified that that is not her zone of genius. She is more at this point focused on design and the practice of building her business. So as a designer, know what your strengths are, play to those. The other things you may have to delegate to other people or identify that that's not your expertise. Second, build upon your credentials. To students, congratulations to you, because earning your degree in interior design distinguishes you from people who don't have that kind of exposure. And even though you've completed your initial credentials, don't stop learning. There is new technology out here all the time, every day. Make yourself available to learning those things. It's tough in the beginning, but it pays off for you a lot in the end. Pursue the CID and NCIDQ distinctions as well. I am going to be doing that this coming year. And I think that it is another credential that further distinguishes us in this profession. Always broaden your knowledge of new practices, and you'll learn a lot of those from people that you're around. Pursue impactful networking. And so what I mean by that is, it's one thing to show up at events or meetings, but it's a whole different thing to come away with impact. Utilize ASID in every possible way. So certainly attend events, but connect with people at meetings, join committees, and be active. This is the way that you'll meet people who can certainly contribute to what you're doing as a designer, but also you're probably going to meet many job opportunities here. Stay in touch with your classmates and make friends with strangers, even if you're thinking, geez, I feel a little intimidated. You never know. Everybody wants to meet new people. To everyone, do not be intimidated by social media. Some of us who are a little bit more mature sometimes say, well, that's just not a thing that I want to do. I'll leave that for young people. But trust me, I have made many new clients and introduced myself to resources just using social media. Learn to sell. Interior design is definitely a selling business. Learn how to get good at qualifying prospective clients, sharpen your presentation skills, know your worth in this marketplace. Don't be afraid to ask for the order, and definitely follow up with good customer care and customer service. This is something that could be a whole separate conversation. We won't go into that right now, but definitely understand that interior design is a selling function. And last but not least, build and protect your finances. Before you go out and begin a solo practice, set aside the living funds that you're going to need for at least 6 months. Work with an accountant. This will help you to organize your finances, but also for you to understand what opportunities are available to you, and also to help you prepare for any emergencies. Invest in marketing, training, and development, and definitely keep an emergency fund for a rainy day that might come. My final message to everyone would be to approach this work with the best of your creativity and your resources. Embrace the changes that will remain, embrace changes and remain open to innovations, and draw upon your life experiences to build a design practice that distinguishes and elevates your work. With that, I want to thank you all for your attention, and I'm going to turn the program back over to Paul.
Fantastic advice, Marilyn. Thank you so much. How valuable was that, everyone? Fantastic, right? We have so many amazing questions. So I think I'm going to head it over to Jeffrey for a little guidance of how we should manage the last few minutes of the presentation.
Yes, so we have about 8 minutes, and before we go to closing thoughts, Terry is already answering questions in the chat box for those that were asked earlier. But there are a couple of questions in the chat box that I think they would be great for both Marilyn and Terry to answer. And Marilyn, we can start with you. Elaine DaCosta asks, have you ever said no to a client?
Yes.
If you could start that, and why would that be? And it's such great advice for people to understand. And if you would take that one, Marilyn, we would really love it.
So I definitely say no when I sense that a client is, let's say, price driven, and you're going to run into this a lot when you're starting out. Vincent, I don't know if you say his name, Vincent or Vincente Wolf. I met him several years ago, and one of the things he said to me that sticks with me now is, I don't work for jerks. There are a lot of people out here who don't value interior design and the work and the time that goes into it, as Terry had mentioned. It takes a little time to sense that, but anytime you have a client that seems very, very price driven and it is more interested in that than the end result of the project or the process, it's probably a good time to say no early on. So that's that's my overarching advice, but I've said no a lot. And the last thing I want to say about that was, one place that helped me to learn to say no was my experience working at Cabinets to Go. A lot of times you have to balance the fact that we need to make this money or make a sale with, how is this going to reflect on me and our company going forward?
Wow, fantastic advice. Terry, would you answer the question, have you ever done a commercial project? And if so, how did that happen for you?
I primarily focus on residential, but if a client, I have done a few commercial projects. If a client that I'm working with on a residential project has an office, it's typically a smaller office. I've done insurance offices, therapists' offices, things like that. Then I'm able to work on those projects as well.
Great, awesome. All right, Paul, I think Terry is answering chat box questions. And then Marilyn, if you want to take a look at the chat box and see if there's anything you'd like to do that, then Paul, let's just turn it back over to you to ask a couple of questions, or live questions from the audience too, of course.
Yeah, let's raise some hands. Do we have any questions live from the audience first?
Zoe, would you like to ask that question live? I see you just put one in the chat box. If you can speak it live, that'd be awesome.
All right, Zoe, the floor is yours.
Okay. My question was, how are you able to keep your own design or style preferences out of mind when you're working for a client that has like a very specific taste?
Great question.
Tammy? I mean, I'm so sorry. Tammy's our panelist tomorrow night. Marilyn?
Marilyn.
So I think, first of all, I think I do bring a fair amount of my aesthetic to the work that I do. And I think that's what attracts people to me. So I aesthetically, like I said, clean and concise, but I also lean towards global influences, let's say. So things that are African, Asian, Latin American, things that have an organic texture to them. It's rare that I would get someone coming to me and saying, can you do a, something marvelously traditional, let's say, that's, I admire traditional work. You can see from what I was talking about with the Newark Museum. And yes, I do know Ulysses Grant Dietz. He is just he's one of my cherished champions. He just is. And so I think that you should never divorce yourself from what you love and what you're inspired by. Clients ultimately, at the end of the day, they want you, not you to do someone else's work. That would put you in the category of being an expediter, and you're not. You're a designer. Expediters just sort of, will rip, a page out of a magazine and go and find those things at Home Goods. Your job is to bring a design, something that's unique and different to what the client wants.
It's about, I think, really creating that balance between the needs and wants and desires and what
Correct.
is your wheelhouse. Because, as a designer, I assume that you wouldn't want to sacrifice your own design aesthetic or put that on the back burner.
Correct.
So I think it's always that really beautiful balance of relationship between client and designer. So let's go on to a little couple things. Hey, Terry, what are a couple of your favorite things to use for installation? Are you a wallpaper lover? Are you a carpet lover? Is there something that you can tell us about your aesthetic personally that you like to use over and over for jobs?
I like to start with rugs, very colorful, vibrant, bold colors. And if you're starting with that in a room, then that becomes the artwork in the room. So then your design can blossom from there, so to speak. So I would say that I start with rugs. I love wallpaper. I love all different kind of elements. And I love, like I mentioned, the art of the craft, using anything that is locally sourced, anything that has a story to tell that will bring that emotion into a space.
So this or that, color or neutral?
Gosh, color. Hello.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Color can be a neutral too, depending on the
Oh,
color.
You're right.
Go ahead, Tammy Bolden.
Yes, it can.
So Paul, how about one more question to Marilyn?
Sure, Marilyn. Just when you look around every day and you wake up with a fresh set of eyes, what are some things that inspire you?
So I'm gonna give you three categories. Number one is nature. I look at I try to get out to walk every day, right? And so I will notice what colors are in the bark of a tree, right? It can be white, gray, brown, and a little green. And I may take that back and say, this is a color story right here. So definitely nature. I look at the play between water and the sand at the beach, and I also like to see the tension between what is wet and what is dry. So those are some natural things definitely inspire me. In recent years, it's been fine art. I work with an art advisory called Art Unpacked. And through that advisory, I have learned a lot about color, negative space, the impact of figurative art in interiors. Like Terry was saying, she likes to start with rugs. I'd love to start a project off with art. I'm currently, again, with the Austin Gray Design Group, we are working on a project right now, and we came up with an art inspiration earlier this week that I think is going to drive the whole design for a very big project we have coming up later this year. So that would be my second inspiration. And then the third thing would be my clients. Sometimes I ask them, what's your favorite color? What are the colors that you wear the most? What are colors you don't wear that you'd love to wear? And then I try to encourage people to go a step further. If you said, you know, I always wear black, I'm going to say, well, let's not paint the whole house black, but maybe let's experiment with painting the ceiling black, or let's punch up different parts of the space with colors that a person really likes.
So being able to give your client what they want with being true to yourself.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a win-win situation, I think, for everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. You are an awesome moderator. We're going to want to have you back as a moderator and host. And I want everyone to remember Paul's advice, a big smile. It's very, very, very important. And that's actually a really good thing to take to a client meeting too. Yeah. I've had to remind myself of that in the past at different points. So I'm going to carry that forward. This has been an absolutely wonderful program, Tammy and Terry. I'm so sorry. I'm thinking about tomorrow night's program, and I'm like already getting anxious about tomorrow. And so I'm saying the wrong name, Marilyn and Terry. I'm thinking about what the conversation that Tammy and I are going to have in person tomorrow night at our program. I need to stay in the day. Marilyn and Terry, what a fantastic program you brought us. I just was actually texting with a professor, and I said tonight's residential program was fantastic. You might want to share it with students at some point. And I think it's really been such valuable advice and information, and we've gotten to see great design work. So what a win-win it was tonight. So thank you so much. I just want to pick up on something that Marilyn said that's super important. And she talked about one of her life advices or business advices was to stay on the CID and NCIDQ path. And I just want to say that our 630 program is on that topic tonight. So if you are interested in learning more about that and you have not signed up yet, go to nj.asid.org/events and register right now for the 630 program, because it is on exactly what Marilyn was talking about, staying on that path. Virginia, I'm going to turn it over to you for our closing thoughts.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, everyone. I have a list of notes from all of you. Terry, I've known you now for quite some time, and I love the story about your mom and how that inspires you, and how you had so many messages, learn to be decisive, all of those really great facts, and how you stay organized. It's so great for the students. And Marilyn, I haven't met you yet, but I feel like I know you now. And I loved how you said to use everything that you know, and just your journey throughout your career was so inspiring. So hopefully everyone took as many notes as I did, and we'll continue on with this great programming. Thanks to everyone. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
So yes, we are definitely, our administrator put in the chat box, if you want to sign up right now, you can still register for the 630 program. We'll be starting promptly at 6:30.
I signed up.
Oh, awesome, Marilyn. Yay, I'm so glad you're going to be there. That's
And
fantastic.
before we close out, a big thanks to, as we talk about, our administrator, Christina. There's so many links and so many moving parts to this amazing event, and she has just kept it all together. So thank you, Christina.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Christina, for that always. All right, Marilyn, Laverne, and Terry Fiore, follow them both on their social media pages. Keep up with them, and let's all continue to turn to them for inspiration and advice, the wonderful things that they started with us tonight. So we really appreciate that. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.